Peace, fam. I'm your host, Shabari Lamb, and this is another edition of the Liberian Presidential Series. And in this video, I'll be talking about the 10th Liberian President, Alfred Francis Russell. Before I begin, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you comment down below. Tell us what you think about these videos. And of course, get the discussion popping. And we would appreciate and encourage you to sign up to the website. Please sign up to the website at BAIO Afrikstan.org/register and become a member and become part of this movement. So, who was Alfred Francis Russell? Alfred Francis Russell was born in Kentucky on August 25th, 1817, in Lexington, Kentucky, to a white father and Amelia Millie Crawford. Now, Amelia Russell was 1/8 black and a slave to Miss Jane Hawkins Todd Irvin of Kentucky. It is believed that Jane's grandson, John Russell, was visiting his grandmother on vacation from Princeton University and became Millie's lover. As a result, they had a son named Alfred after John's visit, and he was a white-looking child born into slavery. He was technically 1/16 black, which in the slavery days would be described as a hexadecaroon. And in some states, he would be considered white, but in the South, this was during the time of the one-drop rule. So any person who had black blood, regardless of how blonde hair, blue-eyed, or however white they may look, was considered black. So they were both him and his mother were emancipated in 1833 by Mary Owen Todd Russell Wycliffe, his grandmother. And another side note about this is that they are the cousins of Mary Todd Lincoln. Now, Mary Todd Lincoln is the wife of President Abraham Lincoln. So the Russells eventually moved to Liberia, and it was very hard for them. They suffered from diseases such as malaria. Supplies were extremely short in the colony. Housing was inadequate. Food was scarce. And as a result, a lot of his family members are going to die. So Russell and his mother and his 5 cousins immigrated to Liberia all together. And he's going to be a missionary as well as a coffee and sugar farmer. And he was a Montserrat County senator. But to go back to the struggles of his family, his cousin Lucy, daughter of Cynthia, and 2 eldest sons, all are going to quickly succumb to fever, which is going to cause ulcers. Cynthia is going to die in 1836. Gilbert is going to die in 1839. Alfred also suffered this, and as a result, he had to use a crutch in 1835. His mother eventually married George Crawford, who was another immigrant, and she's going to die in 1849 of dropsy, and George is going to die the following year. And then Russell basically talks about this. He talks about how it takes a toll on him, and he says, in 1855, of the struggles in Africa, it was so long before we could find Africa out, how to live in it and what to do to live, that it almost cost us death seeking life. So it just shows you the struggles that happened. So Lucy Russell, Lucy makes it. Lucy's going to make it. Cynthia, Gilbert, Alfred's mother, and her new husband, they're going to die. Lucy makes it. So let me make sure if there was any misnomer, Lucy's gonna make it. So Lucy's gonna marry a man by the surname of Bryant, and by 1857 she learns to read and write, as she wrote to her former master Robert Wycliffe from Liberia, asking to be remembered to his daughters and other persons she knew. Russell is gonna be trained. Now you can say that's Stockholm syndrome. You can come to whatever your conclusion about that relationship. It may have been a close relationship. It's speculation. It's not known for sure the relationship that Lucy had with her former master, Robert Wycliffe. Getting back to Russell. Russell was trained to be a teacher, having suffered from the illness that caused injury in Malay. He later became an Episcopalian priest in the St. Paul River area. And then he had a 200-acre farm in Clay Ashland, which was Kentucky and Africa, that was sponsored by Henry Clay, and this was purchased by the Kentucky Colonization Society. So his career, of course, he was a farmer. He was an Episcopalian priest. He was a Methodist minister. He was a schoolmaster in Greenville, Sinoe County. In 1856 to 1860, he's going to be senator of Montserrat County. 1878 to 1883 is going to be vice president under Gardner, and then 1883 to 1884 he's going to be the president of Liberia. So, like I said, he was underneath Anthony W. Gardner. And under his time, he was the one that opposed the whole border dispute with the British. And so, when he takes office, he's also going to have to deal with the border dispute. The border dispute is not going to go away. So the British during his time are going to take it anyway. Like they're going to take the land between Cerbero and the Mona River, the Gallinas territory. They're going to do it anyway. So previously they were trying to get a treaty under Anthony W. Gardner. He resigns because he can't get it resolved, and the Liberians oppose it. But you know how colonialism is. The British do it anyway. So under his term, under Alfred Francis Russell watch, they're going to get it anyways. So it was unfortunate, but it happened. And so Alfred's going to focus on domestic affairs. So he traveled to the hinterland. He had traveled to the hinterland, which is the Liberian interior, which is basically Nimba, Lofa, Bone, Grand Jita, central to eastern Liberia, northeastern Liberia. And in his view, the founding of the country was intended to uplift the indigenous population. And he felt that the indigenous population should be incented, should be assimilated, brought into the Liberian nation. So President Russell felt like a caretaker, and he concentrated on normal duties, implementing current policies. He didn't introduce any new plans. He was continuing what Anthony W. Gardner was, and he saw the treatment of the government land commissioners as derogatory. What was happening to the indigenous people he thought was wrong and needed to be addressed. Now remember, during this time in 1883, he's old. So he was born in 1817. So he is 66 years old. And he wasn't going to run in the next election. So he wanted to get as much done as possible during his brief time. So he does one significant thing. If there's one thing to remember about Alfred Francis Russell, is Alfred Francis Russell allowed Grebo men to be in the legislature, to be representatives. That is the signature. He actually allows for indigenous people to be implemented in the government. And that did not extend to necessarily other groups and not for a long time after, but he does allow for the Grebo to be put in the legislature. That was the first step in getting the indigenous population. Now, other groups, that didn't so much happen, but he did begin that process of allowing the Grebo into the legislature. And then in 1884, not too long after he finishes his term, he's going to die. And he's going to be succeeded by descendants in West Africa. Example would be Clarence Lorenzo Simpson. And then he also had a daughter by the name of Julia Ann, who is going to marry Clarence Lorenzo Simpson, who is going to also not be one of his descendants. He also has descendants that live in Maryland, Kentucky, and South Carolina. So this is the information you need to know about Alfred Francis Russell. Basically, the Gallinas territory and the territory between Cerbero Island and the Mona River get taken by the British. He allows for the Grebo into the legislature, and he continues on with the legacy of Anthony W. Gardner, and he saw himself as a caretaker who felt that the indigenous population should be assimilated, should be welcomed in, and that the treatment earlier, especially by government land commissioners, was not just. And that's pretty much it. There are a couple of quotes that he made a proclamation on March 29th, 1883, but that's a quite lofty proclamation, so I'll just leave it at this. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.